There are books and publishers that have failed and they are out of business, unfortunately, but they have really great books. In this case, this Caissa edition, I cannot find them around, so I assume the publisher went out of business, but the books are amazing. In this case, this Budapest 1896 is a very interesting tournament in which the author was able to collect all the games that disappeared in history because many of the chess players of 1800, 1900, they were affected by diseases like tuberculosis, so they died. Sometimes there were financial problems. In any case, the tournament itself was dedicated to the founding of Hungary, that was founded in 896, so 1000 years later. So this was to celebrate the 1000 years of Hungary. The players are the top player of the period, apart Stanis and Lasker, because they soon would have a match in Moscow, and some like Alapin missing and another Russian champion, probably because they were not playing or affected by some diseases and so on and so forth. The story of the tournament and the games is very interesting, honestly, but I want to show you one thing. This is why I love this book. I mean, the diagrams are really clear and the games are really easy to read, so you don't have any difficulties in reading them. I really love it because it's very simple. So, since I think it's important to watch games over the board in order to grow as chess player, I will try to reproduce all the games of this book. Keep in mind that before we had ChessBase and all these computer tools, it was very difficult to have games, right? And so for people like Fischer to find bulletins of games, books and so on was really important, while for us today is not, because we could have all these games probably in a database like ChessBase. But the pleasure of seeing them over a chessboard is something that makes it different. So without further ado, I will start with round 1, game 1, October 4, 1896, Janowski versus Noah. This game is instructive on 2 counts and also contributes to Janowski's reputation as an aficionado of the 2 bishops. Chigor in defense, although unusual, is not necessarily unsound. Instead of aiming for c5 in order to equalize, Black's attempt to wrest the initiative in the center by means of a more drastic e5. For this, however, he must pay a price. Black usually exchanging his bishop for white's knight, Chigorin favor knights anyway. So, also reading the description of a game, we learn about players of the past, what they like and what they dislike. So, like I said, Chigorin favor knights anyway, but few masters are willing to make that concession today. Yeah, nobody would really prefer the knights to the bishop, but it depends from the position, however. Considering the use that Janowski makes of these 2 bishops here, it's easy to see why. Further, Noah was an also run while Janowski was a great player in the making. As often happens where there is a great disparity in playing strength, the winning strategy is transparent and the tactics all but play themselves. Wonderfully instructive for beginners. So Janowski is white, okay? d4, e6. c4, d5, knight c3, knight c6, e3, bishop b4, knight f3, knight f6, bishop d3, queen e7. Okay, this is a thing. When there are these two here, generally there are some dangers that one must recognize. Castle, so this is unpinned. Bishop takes e3, b takes e3, d takes e4, bishop takes e4, and castle. Queen a4, rook e8, bishop a3. So now we understand why, right? This queen a4, what was the meaning? The meaning was that in reality he is keeping this square and he can play a skewer. So as we can notice, rook e8, and yet he still played bishop a3, which probably is a good move because he's starting to control the diagonals, he's controlling many of the enemy squares, and not only. Please notice the difference. White has practically finished the opening, while black has still these two pieces out. That's gonna be a problem. That surely is gonna be a problem. And notice now queen d8. So he returns back with another piece. Rook a b1, obviously. Why? Because now if you play this goes down, right? So he's getting a file, but also attacking and putting pressure on the pawn b7. Okay. Knight d5, queen c2, so knight d5, attack the pawn c3, white defend it. And this is the usefulness of watching these old games, right? Because here we are seeing simple attacks, and we are seeing that the other player, white player, for example, the first thing he does is what was the last move of my opponent, knight d5. What did he do? He attacked the pawn c3. We need to defend it, and that's it. So that's kind of important, because many people complain that they make mistakes, blunders, but in reality they are not watching what their opponent is doing, okay? Queen f6, rook f e1, so now he wants to do this. Knight b6, attacking the bishop c4, bishop d3, attacking the pawn h7, g6, e4. That's a good move, partly because they start to control a lot of squares, but it's also it will go deep probably in enemy territory. Let's see what happens. e5, wow, d5, knight d8. At this point it's easy to say that white has the initiative. Why? Because all the black pieces are in black's territory, the white pieces are trying to control black's territory, white pieces have more space and they have more activity. c4, knight d7, queen d2, b6. So as you can see, the problem is this and this. They need to come into the game. How do you do that? That's the problem, right? probably it wouldn't have worked out this c6 because of queen h6, knight g5, it starts to become a problem. Okay, this seems a way to bring out the bishop and then maybe connect the rooks probably. Let's see what he wants to do. Queen h6, knight b7, no, he didn't want to bring out the bishop, okay, I don't know what he's doing. Bishop c2, and here we see that this is a maneuver. What does a maneuver mean? You want to go here, and here it blocks everything. So you can see how many pieces are pinned. So maybe knight b7, not so good. Okay. Knight d c5 and bishop c1. As we can see, he's bringing the pieces back to the king side for an attack. Well, as we can see at page 10, there is a beautiful picture of Mikhail Chigorin. Chigorin was considered the father of the Russian school, okay? By the way, there are some of the comments that are under DS, and DS means Deutsche Schachzeitung, that it's a magazine, right? And here it says there was an alternative here that was bishop b2, and it gives a very long line. Notice that being a part of Deutsche Schachzeitung means that they didn't use a computer for that line. They actually use their brains, no? Which unfortunately could have some problems, because we know that it's not always so strong, our human brain, compared to the computer. Knight d6, bishop g5, queen g7. I was interested in this move because when he played this, this made sense, right? Queen h4, obviously he wants to avoid to exchange the queens because he wants to attack. Knight d7 is trying to control the squares that are important for this attack. Bishop h6, queen h8. So why this wasn't good? Because white would have played probably this, okay? So that's why I tell you white has a good advantage, because as you can see, is really attacking, and the black is not really producing anything significant as attack. Yes, of course, maybe this can fall down, who knows, but the attack is on this side, and this is the king. If you lose the king, the game is over, right? So that's kind of important. How does white continue? Bishop a4, f6, and here there is a comment that says the queen now is out of the game, practically. Yeah, this is a very powerful piece. How many squares is he controlling? Only one. Good. Very bad. c5, knight f7. So why you couldn't take here? Because bishop c6, okay, and that goes down, then it's a big problem. And of course you cannot take this, otherwise it takes right away. So this is the reason. So after c5, knight f7, bishop e3, rook e7, h3, queen g7, d6. Obviously white is attacking, and this probably shows you the idea of the two weaknesses. Once one weakness is fixed, you try to access another one create a problem on another side of the board, because that will make the position crumble, the thing crumble. That's kind of very, very important. But here there is also a reason, because as you can see, if this pawn go forward, then this bishop has more open lines to attack. Okay. C takes D, C takes D, knight takes D6, and bishop B3, check. Knight F7, and let's see what happens. Bishop H6. That's great, because this cannot take, since it's pin. If she takes with the queen, you lose the queen, so it's a big problem. Queen H8, Rook E D1, Bishop B7, Knight H2, Knight C5, Knight G4, Knight takes C4, F3, G5, Queen E1, Knight C5, and now there is Rook D6, Knight D7, Queen D2, Bishop C8, and after Knight takes F6, here black resigns. So white does he resign? You cannot go here, you cannot go here. If you take, you have lost the queen. So let's say that you play this move, right? Knight takes F6. So what would our friend play here? He could play Rook takes F6, Queen takes F6, Queen D8, and if he plays Rook E8, Queen takes C8, and it's checkmate. So that's a possibility. Yeah, it seems it works. But let's see another thing. If we do this right away, does it work? Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, so this is, it seems the best, because after there is this, and there is this, and the game is over. So Queen take F6, check. Where do you go? You cannot take because of this, so tack, and this is game over. I hope you enjoyed this game. That was game number 1 from this book. I will present little by little all the games, because as we can see, it's nice to use our time machine and go back to 1896 and see this wonderful tournament.